So the New York Times reported today that the U.S. has been secretly spying on the Brits and perhaps other close allies like us. Now, they're not supposed to. The deal among the allies was you spy on people in your own country and then you share it if a credible case is made that it matters. But thanks to the massive leak of documents by Edward Snowden, the Americans still in hiding in Russia, we are learning that the old rules are pretty much being ignored. Now, those old rules were part of something called the Five Eyes Agreement. Not five guys, Five Eyes. So what is that? Well, that is essentially an intelligence sharing agreement. They share wiretaps, satellites, fiber optic communications, things like that. So who are these Five Eyes? Well, they include the following countries. They are Canada, the U.S., Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. Those are the Five Eyes. And you know what? There's nothing really all that new about it. It's actually a remnant of World War II when we shared this kind of stuff. But the Australian Prime Minister, for example, didn't know about it until 1973, and the public only found out about it in 2000 when some politicians began asking their spy chiefs, how do we know this stuff? So the Canadian agencies involved with the Communication Security Establishment Canada, and apparently part of our job is to monitor part of Russia, Central and South America. So what does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? It means that every phone call, every email, Facebook, website, all of that stuff can be monitored. But the Department of National Defense says it doesn't pursue information on Canadians. All right, so joining me now from Vancouver is Steve Anderson. He is the Executive Director of OpenMedia's. That's a group that's committed to keeping the internet open, affordable, and surveillance-free. Pretty tough. It's getting tougher on you there, Steve. So, I mean, now that we know that the U.S. and Britain are not completely sticking to this Five Eyes, no spying deal on each other, it obviously begs the question, what are the chances that the NSA in the United States is spying on our internet traffic? Or could we be spying on the Americans?
Yeah, I think it's entirely likely. I think it's actually extremely likely, and it would be really odd if they were not. Because, I mean, even if they're not actually reaching into our digital infrastructure in Canada, most Canadian traffic goes through the U.S., and we know that the NSA is collecting that data at bulk, basically. They're just collecting all of it. So there's no doubt, and I think the question is, how many Canadians are being swept up in this surveillance, and does our own spy agency have is it collecting the sensitive personal information of law-abiding Canadians?
Good question. I mean, here's what the Guardian reporter who's been working with Edward Snowden said exists about Canada. He says there are many, many, many more significant documents about Canadian surveillance in partnership with the NSA that will be reported. It hasn't yet, and I think will be quite enlightening for the people of Canada. So I guess from that, if he's not teasing us, it's reasonable to assume that there is a high level of spying and information sharing, given that we're neighbors and, if the Americans are nervous about their security, we're the closest access point. That's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at what the government and, what CSEC is saying in their public comments, they're being very careful. They're saying we're not pursuing or targeting Canadians, but that doesn't really mean anything. It's just words. I mean, they might not be actively going after our information, but if the NSA happens to share our data with us, with our government and with other governments, that's entirely consistent. So I think that it's really likely that Canadians are being swept up, and I mean, it's dangerous. I mean, this leaves us exposed to cyber hackers. I mean, we could be talking about, if you think about what we do online these days, we're talking about banking, your prescriptions, where you are at any given time, that kind of geographical data, as well as your friends and your family. So all this sensitive information being stored in maybe multiple databases, I think it's dangerous, it's reckless, and it's expensive. It's going to cost $4 billion in the coming years just in Canada alone.
So is there anything
that's public dollars? Is
there anything an average Joe like me can do to not share the kind of stuff that I don't want to have shared, either with my government or from government to government? Just give me one thing to do to protect myself.
I think that there are, encryption services out there. One is called Tor, and we recommend people use that. But I think the best way to deal with this, I don't think there's really a technological solution. The best way to deal with this is to reach out to the government and say we need privacy safeguards in this country. You know, the Liberal Party has put forward a bill to say that this spying activity needs to have parliamentary oversight. And so I think that the best thing that people can do is really reach out to their member of parliament, go to OpenMedia.ca, we make it easy for you there, and just say we want privacy safeguards in this country, and also we want to know exactly what's happening. We want to know how many people are caught up in this dragnet surveillance.
All right, and parliamentary oversight is something that David Fraser just talked to us about, said is not in this cyberbullying bill. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate you very much joining us from Vancouver tonight.
Thanks for having me.